Why do you think the media is so hesitant to cover this shit?
Sarah Kellen. And this woman has led a lot of lambs to the slaughter. Maxwell only getting 20, considering that she's been probably trafficking for 25 years.
They don't want any justice for these victims.
No. Jeffrey Epstein trafficked underage girls for 25 years.
I have a question. Who the hell is Sarah Kellen?
Sarah Kellen was one of Epstein's procurers, a.k.a. pimps. And actually, the New York Times did an article on 6 Epstein procurers, a.k.a. pimps. And Maxwell was the leading one, but right below her was Epstein's number 2 lieutenant, Sarah Kellen. And this woman has led a lot of lambs to the slaughter. She should be serving multiple lifetimes for child trafficking. Child trafficking is 15 to life. And Maxwell only getting 20, considering that she's been probably trafficking for 25 years, is a joke. But with Kellen, she should also be in prison with Maxwell. And again, as we've talked about it last time, we'll talk about it this time, the government has been completely unwilling to prosecute the procurers and the perpetrators in the Jeffrey Epstein network.
Well, it sounds like I know we're going to get into this, but it sounds like, what did you say her name?
Sarah Kellen.
The other one.
Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah, Ghislaine. Sounds like she's got a pretty cush prison sentence.
Well, she's in a dormitory now, and generally people that are in dormitories, prison dormitories, they've been exemplary prisoners. They've done a lot of time, and they're getting ready to get released. And Maxwell got into a dormitory after like 2 years, so obviously she's been given very cush circumstances.
Why do you think the media is so hesitant to cover this shit?
I can speak from my own experience.
Well, not hesitant. They just won't cover it.
They won't cover it. The media...
Are they pro-sex trafficking? Is that what it is? They like child sex trafficking?
Well, the media will talk about things that are salacious. Anything that's salacious with Epstein, the media will talk about. But when you try to get into justice, the media won't go there at all. In January, I was contacted by CNN. There was going to be a big Epstein document dump. And I was contacted by CNN. And because I was the guy that put the black book on the internet, they wanted me to take part. And I talked to the producer, and then we were texting. And I said, I'd also like to talk about Epstein Justice. It's this organization I've started where we're trying to get justice for Jeffrey Epstein's victims. And then I got a text about, 20 minutes later. Well, Nick, we're going to go a different direction.
Really?
Yeah. And that's happened to me.
So the mainstream media, they don't want any justice for these victims.
No. I mean, it's so bizarre to me that you've got the mainstream media out there and none of them are screaming for justice. Jeffrey Epstein trafficked underage girls for 25 years.
What is the youngest girl on record that he trafficked?
Okay, so on record, it's 13. The cover story is 14, but there were girls younger than actually 13.
Shit.
And I know a therapist. She's an eminent therapist. Over the years, I've been researching and writing about child trafficking for 22 years. And the National Center on Sexual Exploitation puts on an international summit. And I've spoken at the summit 3 times. And the International Society for the Study of Trauma and Dissociation, which is a group of therapists that work with victims that have been abused, gone through horrific abuse. I've spoken at their international conference. So when it comes to people in the anti-trafficking community and also people that work with victims of trafficking, I've got a pretty good name. And I've befriended a couple of them that have told me that, and one of them is really an eminent psychologist. I can't because of our confidentiality, I can't. But people would know her. And she had a victim. She was counseling someone who she felt was under 10 years old when she was trafficked by Epstein. And then I know another therapist who's an esteemed therapist, very esteemed therapist, who has another client that was under 10 years old when they were trafficked by Epstein. Now, and these kids can describe Epstein's home. They can describe parks that they were taken to by his home in New York. They know, and these two therapists firmly believe, now they're young women, that they're telling the truth. And the thing is, when I wrote the Franklin scandal, I mean, King and Spence, the two primary pimps in that network, they were into like adolescent boys. But these guys are psychopaths. Epstein's a psychopath. Maxwell's a psychopath. If you want an 8-year-old, they'll get you an 8-year-old. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, it's not like they're constricted by any type of morality.
I mean, so how would they? I think we talked about how they got the other victims that were 16, 17. You know, how are they capturing 8-year-olds?
They were
just
buying,
kidnapping them.
Well, they were buying them in Eastern Europe. They were actually buying children. Epstein and Jean-Luc Brunel were buying children in Eastern Europe. And what I've seen, like in the Franklin scandal, Boys Town was being plundered by Lawrence King, one of the pedophilic pimps. And the number 2 guy at Boys Town at that point, his name was Father James Kelly. I hate to call him father, but his name was James Kelly. And he'd molested a number of kids in upstate New York. And the Catholic Church, in its infinite wisdom, put him at Boys Town. And I was told by every year, the students of Boys Town are like the mayor. Boys Town is like an incorporated city. And I was told by a former mayor of Boys Town that he felt that Father Kelly was compromised and that's how these kids were able to get passes for the weekend. Because, and that, you know, it's kind of, I was just looking, when I was looking at Boys Town, I was just looking for kids that had been trafficked by Lawrence King. But then I encountered like 6 kids that had been molested by James Kelly. So it's shocking. The Catholic Church knew what he was about in upstate New York, and then they moved him to Boys Town.
They have a history of this, though, don't they?
Oh, yeah. The Catholic Church moves the priests. I mean, that's why they're getting sued into oblivion now, is because they were fully cognizant of the behavior of these priests, and then they would move them to a different parish.
They just picked up a Catholic priest here in Franklin.
No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.